When I was 8 years old, they had their religious ceremony in Dublin called what they called the Eucharistic Congress. Excuse me, where the Pope came over from Rome to the city of Dublin, and they broadcast the Mass from a park which is still there, Croke Park. It's still there in Dublin, and it's where all the big rugby and Irish football matches are played. Now, not too many people in the neighbourhood had the money to go to Dublin, but my father, fortunately, had bought a radio set, and to let the neighbours enjoy the service which was being broadcast from Dublin, he moved it to the front room nearest the street, opened the window wide, which switched on the TV set so the neighbours could stand around and listen to the services from Dublin. Now, the people were not quite sure how to behave when Mass was said over the radio. I think some people are still confused today when it is broadcast on television. They're not sure whether they should kneel down in their own homes or whether they should pray or whatever. But going back then, the neighborhood was so religious that a lot of people were kneeling down in the street while the service was going on. And one of the sad byproducts of the whole thing was at the streets, at the end of each street, where there was usually a blank wall. We call it a blank wall, which is very handy for playing handball against. But the neighbours of that street would build an altar, and they would, whatever wood they have handy, and they would cover it. They'd have a nice altar, what they call an altar cloth, usually the best sheet that someone could afford to lend them, and with a few religious statues and candles and maybe a picture hanging up in front of the cross, the crucifix or so. It was quite a religious experience. Unfortunately, the political situation made it very difficult, because from the other side of the area in which we lived, there came the rowdies who were not Catholic, and they just toured the neighborhood in force and pulling down the altars, smashing the statues, and making a complete mess which had to be rebuilt the following day. Now, of course, the police were not really interested in this affair, this regular thing, because they had not enough desire to enter our neighborhood in the first place. They stayed usually as far away as they could, with maybe one brave soul guarding the entire neighborhood. So for the week or so that the Congress was going on in Dublin with the different devotional services, usually they had to be they had the option there of rebuilding the altar the following morning after the destruction, and putting everything had to come down at night. Then all the statues, everything else they had of the religious nature was taken into people's houses, so that left the rowdies only the option of pulling down just the wooden part of the altar. And this went on for about the week. But I remember how proud we were of the fact that when we were leaving our house for any reason, while the Mass was being said, we were completely surrounded by people who were saying prayers, who were kneeling on the street, to say prayers, because I think it lasted a full week, the Eucharistic Congress.